My name is Carl Reiner. I'm here at the Screen Actors Guild headquarters today, December 18th, 2001, to visit with Barbara Bain. Barbara, three-time Emmy Award-winning actress, social activist, I know these to be true, by the way, and the founder of the Screen Actors Guild Foundation Book Pals program. Hey, pal.
Hey, darling. Good and well. How are you?
Now, you know, we're here at the Screen Actors Guild.
Uh-huh.
How did we get here? We, meaning the royal you. How did we get here to the Screen Actors? First of all, you're not from Los Angeles.
No.
Where were you born?
In Chicago, Illinois. I was born in a car on a Friday the 13th.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm. It portended well.
That's very theatrical of you.
I know. They said I was always in a hurry.
You're born of who?
Of who? Okay.
Of whom?
Two really sweet people who actually dedicated their lives to, with concern for the community that they lived in. They were immigrants. I am what was proudly hailed as
immigrants from where?
Russia.
Do you speak Russian?
No.
They did.
Hardly. They were very, very engaged in learning English.
I see.
And becoming Americans. And I was happily named first-generation American. A very special, wonderful place to be. And I kind of grew up with this wonderful mix of being in the Midwest, a very American kind of viewpoint, and Europe as part of my understanding of life as well.
And you say both your parents were activists?
They were very
activists?
concerned with social conditions of all kinds. My mother was involved with creating what were then called well baby stations, so that infant mortality was somewhat reduced because the general immigrant population didn't go to doctors. Mm-hmm. They were terrified. And so what we now have is pediatric, prenatal, et cetera, care. She started in the city of Chicago, and my father was very active in the unions.
Which union?
All of them.
You're kidding.
No, I don't kid you.
So you come by your activism genetically.
No question. I think it is genetic. And it was a viewpoint. It was a viewpoint that if this was the world you were living in, you should take some responsibility for it. And in an odd way, the whole feeling of what a city had to offer you and what you therefore gave back to it was kind of cast in those days, because there were two really, really important to me.
Were you proud of your parents at that time? You are, the way you sound now, you are very proud of them today. Was it a problem because they were out there, and maybe your friends' parents were not out there doing things that were not considered?
Well, no, not really. That aspect of it I didn't find. You know, when one grows up, where you are and who you are, you think that's how everybody is. I thought everybody read War and Peace in August. It didn't occur to me that that was not an activity in every other family.
Your mother or your father?
My mother was a big reader.
So that's why you're the reader, huh?
Yes. She would read it in Russian, and I would read it in English. And at the end of August, we would discuss it.
That's amazing. We're talking about reading at that age, and you became the founder of the Book Pal program. We're going to get to that. That's from the very beginning, and the last great thing you've done is this Book Pal thing, which we're going to talk about.
Not the very last.
I'm most proud of you for that thing. I'm beside your good acting. I know, and we're going to talk about that later, because that's just to be applauded.
Do you know, Carl, I was getting at that there were two public institutions in the city that in retrospect I can see had a profound effect on me. And one of them was the Chicago Public Library, because I went in there as a little kid. I had learned to write my name, so I had a name. And I went in it and I got a library card.
How old?
Preschool, because I was reading and
writing. I know you,
young.
Barbara, you're one of the most voracious readers I know, and it all started in Chicago.
It started, and they gave me a shiny yellow card that was so exotic looking to me because of the color. It was like taxi cab color. It was shiny, it was yellow, and it had my name on it.
Yes.
It made me an official person.
And a very theatrical person, how you remember that it was a yellow card, and you're describing it the way an actress would have a sense memory and a memory of things in the past.
Well, I walked into that, I had that card, and I told the librarian that I was going to read every book in the library.
And you did.
I always had major goals.
And you failed that goal.
I failed because she announced to me that I couldn't,
Yeah.
no matter how long I lived, which was rather negative of her.
But you know, you probably came pretty close to your goal because you're very young yet, and you've got a lot of reading to do, and your eyesight is good. Now, let me hear about your education. It was in Chicago.
Chicago Public Schools, which was also interesting because I was given a feeling, which is so valuable, that kids do not experience very much today, that I could learn anything. I felt I loved learning. I loved the process of learning. I got excited when I got something. You know, you're kind of going around and then you go, oh, I love that moment of learning something.
You actually love school.
I loved school. I loved school.
Were you lucky to have good teachers, or
I had good teachers.
or you always searching for knowledge?
Yeah, basically. But I had good teachers. In fact, I had a teacher who was smart enough to get me out of the room pretty fast because I'd finish the work very fast and start causing trouble.
One of those smart-ass kids.
Yes.
Yes.
And she gave me a pass to the library. So once again, I found myself in a library almost all day long. And there was a woman in there who was dedicated to books and no kids came in. So she was very happy to see me.
Oh.
So I was greeted like, some very special person.
Now, you probably were always the smartest one in your class, or one of the smartest, because you did get good grades.
Yes,
And
easily.
And you went through high school?
High
In
school.
Chicago, and went to
University
college.
of Illinois.
You did?
Yes.
Yeah. I never asked you this. You graduated.
University of Illinois, degree in sociology, because
Sociology.
I was going to save the world.
You were going to save the world.
Yes, of course.
You did a little bit in Mission Impossible to save the world.
I just thought, I noticed after a while it was
yeah,
a really hard
yeah.
job. I couldn't really do it. But that's what I had in mind, certainly. But I did want to mention the other place that was significant in my life, though I didn't know it at the time, and also a public institution, which is why I value them so much in a community, was the Art Institute of Chicago. I went there, and Chicago was hard. It was dirty, it was noisy, it was, in a certain way for a child, frightening. The streets, the things that went on, the noise, there was a certain brutality that was very hard for me to...
It was Nelson Algren, Chicago.
Yes.
Yes.
City of the big
I want
shoulders.
to ask you something you can discuss. Would you talk about your religious persuasion or lack of it?
Why?
No, only because...
I'm going to
only
alienate
because,
every single person who...
No, yeah,
I was raised by one atheist and one agnostic.
Oh, that's
Is that what you want to know?
No, what I was going to get at is
Yes.
that in my household, it was very important to know who was Jewish and who wasn't.
Oh.
Edward G. Robinson was Jewish and Paul Mooney was Jewish.
No.
And now you were a very pretty blonde young woman going to college. And you're not a member of any church or synagogue. Did people know that you were Jewish?
Well, I had some very strange experiences
That's what
as
I
a
was
result.
getting at, if you don't mind telling me, because they're so
No,
important.
they were really difficult, actually, because in my household, the things that were valued were, is the person smart, and are they nice?
That should
Were
be
they
everybody.
moral, and were they smart? Smart was important.
Yeah.
Dumb wasn't big
Yeah.
excitement. So they had to be smart, and they had to be moral. My parents, as I mentioned, who were non-religious, were the most moral people I'd ever encountered, and strict in that regard. Very. There was no discussion about stealing. For instance, I'll take these flowers. No, of course not. Everything was quite strict. You're going to be there at 3 o'clock, you're there at 3 o'clock. We don't talk about it. You're just there at 3 o'clock. It's a contract. You've made a contract with another person. So you be there. Never mind any other ramifications. It was just an obligation you had made. When I went to school, I found pretty shockingly, because that was never discussed at home, the University of Illinois, which was a state university, was very segregated, totally. So that I was expected to live in certain places. The sororities were very segregated. The independent houses were segregated.
Segregated, no Jews, no...
Yes.
No,
You were
no
either one
blacks,
sort of,
yeah.
and particularly we were in southern Illinois. So
Was that tough on you?
it was a
You were
surprise. No, it
already-
wasn't tough on me. It
But
was a surprise.
You were already acting like you belonged there, and somebody was saying you don't belong
I
here.
didn't know I didn't.
Yeah. Oh, you didn't know?
No,
Because your
I
parents
learned.
Your parents told you you were a human being and you believed
Yes,
it.
I thought
And you
that
believed
was
it.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, what happened actually was, and it was a little piece of Midwestern history in that sense, is that I did go down there with my mother to sit behind a desk, in front of a desk, of the Dean of Housing. And she gave us a list of houses to go look at. We went around. We came back. We sat down. And she started filling out this form. And she asked for a minister's reference. And my mother said we didn't have a minister. And she said, kept asking. She wanted to fill in this spot. And my mother said we didn't have any religious affiliation at all, but if it was absolutely required, we could find a rabbi. And the woman started to choke and get
I
apoplectic.
hadn't heard the word rabbi ever.
She got all red, started to choke, couldn't breathe, gathering in her breath. And she reached in the drawer and said, oh, 40 of those. And she put this paper on the table and she said, you'll have to go to these houses.
Oh.
Oh. So.
And you said, oh.
Yeah, oh. So we went around and went to those houses. And I lived for the first time in my life in a very, very limited community, meaning all those people were the same. I had never experienced that. I was used to all kinds of mix of people. And it was an experience. I was told who I could date.
Really?
I said, well, why? Well, he's a Sigma Nu. Okay, what does that mean?
Yeah.
I didn't have the lexicon. I didn't have the reference point. I didn't know what anybody was talking about. But I learned.
Yeah.
And the reason was I might marry him. So I couldn't go to the movies with him. Oh, okay. So it went on like that. And there were many other such experiences like that were really kind of strange.
Where did your first interest in theater, did you have an interest in theater yet?
I didn't know I did.
What did you wanted to be a sociologist, and you
I
were
wanted
going
to
do
save
that.
the world.
So where did that first thing happen where you said, hey, did you go to the movies? Did you watch movies? Did you like?
Two things that happened. No, they
No
were
theater? How
considered
about-
rather frivolous in my household. I think there were a couple of things. First of all, reading. Didn't you play every part in every book you ever read? Wasn't I Anna Karenina standing in the waiting for Vronsky at the railroad station? I mean, I certainly played all those parts somehow.
But in your head there was no...
Never thought of any theatrical
I
things
see.
until at the University of Illinois, in order to avoid gym class, I took a dance class.
Which is done on a stage.
It was heaven. It was a sense of freedom. It was a sense of unknown territory. See, the academics were easy, so they didn't challenge. They weren't so excited. They were okay. This was unknown, and I fell in love. It was my first love in any art form. I went to New York to study with Martha Graham.
You studied with Martha Graham.
I certainly did.
How
I
long
still
did
have
you-
her footprint on my back. She wanted you to... She was amazing. I want to go back to the one thing, though, because of the Art Institute in Chicago and how it
Yes.
affected me. I walked into there from the ugly, brutal streets of Chicago, and it was extraordinary. I was so moved, I wept. I was a skinny kid, and I saw things that were... The building itself was beautiful. There was this cool marble.
At
There
what
was
age is this happening?
8, 7, 8, 9.
Really? Really?
Yeah. And I walked around and I saw things that were extraordinary. I didn't talk to anybody. I was very shy. If anybody had asked me, the building itself, the marble, everything about it, if somebody would say, what are you doing here? I could never have articulated it. But what I knew somehow was that there was something more than what was immediately apparent in the streets. Something extraordinary that one could reach for very unformed as thought. But in retrospect, I said, that's where that happened. Between the reading and between seeing this building and its whole beauty, it was just extraordinary to me. So I carried that in my heart, and then, of course, as I said, found myself on the way to New York with a leotard, my hair pulled back very tight.
What were you going to New York for?
To study with
dance,
Martha
because you
by
had
then.
started dancing back in...
Yes.
Yes. And how did you find your way to Martha Graham?
How could you not?
I know,
At
but
that time.
And was it easy to get accepted?
In the classes you could. The experience I had that was wonderful about Martha was that I had read a lot about her, and I was a very strong-minded young person in certain ways, and I decided that no matter what, I wasn't going to sort of fall down at her feet and you know, be kind of a...
Sycophant.
That's the word, okay. I was going to do that. She was an artist. She was wonderful. I was going to go study with her.
But so am I, you thought.
I didn't get that far,
Yeah,
but I thought, you know, okay. And I walked into her studio, and she walked by, and I fell on the ground, even prepared.
Yeah.
She was so impressive a person. She was tiny.
I know.
I stood over her, but she went by, and you caught your breath. She was so powerful, her presence. This wasn't even in class.
How did you know of her in Chicago?
I read.
You read about her. Again,
Everything.
That all comes back to
Everything.
books for you.
Yes.
Made your
I knew
life.
about Ruth St. The only thing I knew about the West Coast, the only thing, I didn't pay so much attention to Hollywood. I knew Hollywood was here. Ruth St. Denis.
Ruth St. Denis.
I knew about her. She had a
Ted Shawn.
yes, in Eagle Rock. So I knew about Eagle Rock,
Yeah.
which
All
is
right,
pretty
so-
silly.
Okay, so from Martha Graham, how
Yes.
long did you stay on the floor with Martha?
I guess 2 years or so.
2 years, that's a good...
Something like that. We danced at places like the YMCA, HA, on 5th Street.
90, yeah.
For ourselves. I
Yeah.
mean, it was kind of, the art form at the moment had a great big peak, and it kind of squeezed down into,
Was this a class that was this a professional
not a
company?
professional company. I
Were
never
you-
made it
and-
into
but
a
you were-
professional
You were
company.
hoping someday to become part of a professional company.
Yes,
Yes. But you left after 2 years?
little less than that. I,
How were you supporting yourself
modeling.
while you were at Martha Graham? And how did you...
There was
get your-
another very exciting moment.
Well, how did you get your first job modeling, and
Somebody came and said-
get me that girl?
Somebody took me up to some model agency.
You remember who that person was?
No.
You don't remember how you first modeled
No.
job?
They said, come with me, we'll go. It was a legitimate office I was
How
going
did you
to.
know this person wasn't
No.
a terrible person who was trying to do you something?
That I could tell because we went to a regular place in the daytime.
I see.
And there was a receptionist, and, you know, it looked legitimate.
So you sort of slipped into modeling.
Totally. I had no idea to do that. And that was a watershed moment, another one, where I had to sit down and say to myself, oh, I can make more in 1 hour modeling than I can with my degrees at trying to save the world. What do you want, kid? Wow. It was a big moment for me to figure out what, and I got on a plane and went to Bermuda for the Ladies' Home Journal. I didn't stay and save the world.
Was that the first
It was
biggie?
one of the first jobs.
And do you remember what you got for that first job?
Well, what seemed exorbitant money, something like $75 an hour, something like that. People were making that a week,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. And I got to go to Bermuda. I got to go to all these places everywhere around the world. I was in Cuba the day Batista was kicked out.
Really?
And I saw, well, this gets a little political. I saw an amazing sight. Amazing. I would go on these locations modeling, and everybody else would split and go right back to New York. But I wanted to see the place I had just been in, so I would stay a few extra days. And there I was in Cuba, and I went to go to the airport, and I got there, and it was all kind of buzzy and strange. I didn't speak Spanish. I still don't. Anyway, the guy who drove me there dropped me off, and they said, you can't go there. I said, what do you mean I can't? I tried to find somebody. I finally found a guy named O.K. McCarthy. I said, help. He spoke English. He said, you can't go out today. I said, why? He said, and he took me over and pointed to a plane on the ground, and next to it were about 50, 60 or so, like postal bags made out of canvas, and they were being loaded onto the plane. Money going out of the country.
That Batista we're going to take
with the
them.
money. And I just looked at that. You know, I was very young. My eyes were just stuck wide open. That's how somebody takes over a country. I actually saw it.
The sophistication you get
Woo!
from being intelligent and a model caused you to see something historic.
Yes.
I mean, that's a
Yes.
wonderful tie-in there. Now, here's a question.
Yes.
That I don't know if this. You were so well read, so educated.
Yes.
And you were a model. Did you connect with the other models, or did you feel
No.
that? I mean, they probably said, "Who is this girl who's talking English?"
No, they didn't say that. What they did say was, what's your birth sign?
Oh yes.
And what color lipstick are you wearing?
Oh.
That was tiresome after a while.
And you didn't mind? Well, of course, it's $75,
No,
and now
it's-
you would accept.
Well, they didn't read anything, the only thing that was going on. I, by then, was in acting classes as well, so I had what I wanted to do.
From the modeling to acting, where did that? How close connected was the modeling to the acting? The first.
Well, it was connected in the sense that the first class I went to, I was made up rather exorbitantly, because I just come from a shoot. And I walked into an acting class, and of course everybody, oh, another model wants to be an actress. You know, everybody was pretty.
Well, what made you think you wanted to be an actress? What did you see?
I didn't
Who
think
did you
that
see?
you know, it was kind of interesting. People kept saying to me, there were two things people kept telling me to do with my life. One is they'd walk up and say, you should be a torch singer.
A torch singer. The fact
And
that
I'd say, I can't sing.
you can
And
torch.
they'd say, right, they'd say, that doesn't matter, they would tell me. You just lean against the
Yeah.
piano and look good, right?
Yeah.
I can't do something I can't do. I couldn't
Well,
do it.
who's the one who said
So
you
now
should be
who
an
said
actress?
to me, oh, there was a friend who was an actress. And I went with her one weekend to a stock production that she was in. And on the way back, we were all in a car with a teacher who became my first teacher. And I walked
How did
into
you
that
become
class.
friends with an actress? Who was she?
She
a
was
model
modeling
too?
as well.
Aha.
Yeah.
So there was.
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I went to this class to see what this was about. And Kurt Conway was the teacher. We were up on West 54th Street in this little loft. And it was quite amazing because I found two things immediately. I couldn't do it at all, at all.
Really.
No, I just couldn't. And yet I was really glad to be there. There's a little piece of me that's perverse that way, where I want to, if I can't do it, I want to get it.
Yeah.
So I stayed in that class, and then Lee's class. I went into Lee Strasberg's
Strasberg
class.
you're talking about.
And
Now, how did you get into Lee's class?
oh, that wasn't easy, by the way. You had
Because
to
they were
go
pretty
through.
careful about taking people in who had talent. They kept the people.
Very. But the thing was, I didn't go out for any work. I stayed there and worked and worked and worked. And until I went out for my first audition, I got the role.
What was the audition
And
for?
I'll tell you about that because that's pretty funny. Lee was an extraordinary teacher. Scared the hell out of you. But he was just wondrously helpful to me. And what was important about both Martha and Lee was having the experience of a master teacher. So to have a master to work with was
Yes.
very different
Yeah.
than just a teacher. This was somebody past.
Do you think your looks
That.
got you in, or did he see
My looks always helped.
Always got you in.
Always
At
helped.
least to pay attention, see it. Possibly, because she could be a star. She's that pretty.
Always
So-
helped. They opened a lot of doors that I was somewhat aware of. I wasn't particularly aware of my looks when I was young, one way or the other. I thought I was incredibly skinny,
Well,
tall,
I've seen
and
photos of
homely.
you in your days as a model.
Yeah.
And you were a knockout. And
All
you still
right.
are, but I mean, they were lit well and you looked well. So Lee Strasberg had to say, oh, she's pretty, because he took Marilyn Monroe in, not
Yes.
knowing whether she could act or not, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
well, I'm not going to make a comparison there, but he did you had a very difficult interview with him. He kind of stuck you on a dunce chair, a tall stool, and walked around you humorlessly and critically, and I guess I passed. But it didn't, yes, I'm sure that had something to do with it.
Did he ask you questions that were enable you to show your intelligence?
Yes.
Because that would get him in. I mean, that would get you in. He was a, you know...
He was an intellectual. He was wonderful that way. He was asocial. He couldn't say a hello, but he was brilliant.
Yeah.
So what he did he went around, he asked me about what I read. And when I said all this stuff, he said, oh, indiscriminate.
Indiscriminate. Yeah.
I mean, no matter what, I remember him saying that. And I thought, well, but we never got into the discussion.
But he was wrong about that. Yeah, indiscriminate is not what you only read things that are value most of the time.
I thought that was funny.
Okay, now you talked about your first job. You remember it?
Oh, I do.
How you got it?
I do, because it's just the perfect actor story. One of the teachers...
This is a perfect place to tell it.
Yes, that's why I'll bring it up. Otherwise, I wouldn't. I'd save it for, actors. It's actor story. I read, about 400 girls read for the road tour of the National Company.
Now, are you sure it was 400?
At least. Every blonde in New York read for...
By the way, are you a natural blonde? Were you a natural?
What kind of question is
Because I
that,
asked
Carl?
you, I called you blonde when you were a little kid. I don't know that you were.
I was fair.
Fair, okay.
Don't
You're
ask what it is now. I haven't seen the color for so long.
Okay.
It's painted.
But you're a blonde as long as we know you.
I guess. And I've gotten used to it, too, by now. Anyway, given that, every blonde in New York was on the stage reading for this role in Middle of the Night, Patty Chayefsky's Middle of the Night. And one of my teachers was understudying Eddie. So we worked on it quite a bit, and they eliminate. We were down to about 12 of us on the fourth callback, or 18th callback.
Who was the original on the Broadway company?
Jenna Rollins.
Jenna Rollins, right. A blonde.
Blonde.
Yes. Definitely.
Given that, the audition was 10 o'clock in the morning at a Broadway theater. It's the first thing I went out for. I was beside myself. I was driving to it, or in a taxi, driving to it. Josh Logan was coming in from someplace called the Coast. And Patty was going to be there. So it was really terror time. And the one thing that occurred to me driving there, or riding there, was that Josh Logan has a belly button.
Has a belly button?
I mean, like he's a person.
Yeah, I
Don't
know.
make him somebody so important that you can't even think. Okay, I get on the stage, I read. I had worked on it, and this was the 4th, 5th, or 19th audition.
You worked on it with the Strasberg?
No, actually with Kurt Conway. It was prior. And it went pretty well. It was 10 o'clock in the morning. So I called, and I was asked, how did it go? I said, okay, I did this, and I did that, and that worked, and that was pretty good, and that seemed okay, and 10 o'clock in the morning. Then I went about my day, one modeling job after another, and all day long I said, oh, how could I have done that? Oh, God, that was terrible. Oh, God. Oh, that was, why did I trashed myself for at least 5 hours, maybe 6 by the time of the day. So much so that by the end of the day, with about 14 cents in my pocket, I was so exhausted from beating up on myself, I threw myself in a taxi cab, which were kind of rare to do at that point, and went home. And I walked in the door. What's the matter? I said, oh, I can't talk.
Who did you say, what's the matter?
To Martin, who I was then married to, just
Oh,
married.
you're already married to Martin.
Just
I thought
married.
you met him in that show.
No.
Okay.
Just married, newlyweds. What's the matter? Nothing. I can't talk. I just can't talk. What do you mean you can't talk? I was so terrible this morning. Wait a minute. You called. You said you were. No. I was so terrible. He said, Marty Baum called. You have to call him back. Marty Baum was the big agent handling the show.
Baum Newborn.
I said, I can't talk to anybody. I can't. I was just so terrible. I have to go. I want to go lie down. He said, Marty Baum called. You have to call him. I said, I can't. I really can't. And he said, they don't call you up to tell you you were terrible.
I know. Yes. Well,
And I went,
boy, were you a neophyte.
oh. I said, oh. I got a little more energy back.
Yeah.
And I called Marty Baum.
He said, you got the part.
Yeah. But that was the day in the life of a young actress and what you can do to yourself.
So that was your first professional job.
Yes.
But you had been on the stage doing scenes in all these classes.
In
so-
classes.
Yes. But
In
never,
classes.
But that's that was the road company of middle of the
Yeah,
night.
never stopped working after that. Never did any other kind of job. Did to get through school. I can carry a tray.
Well, modeling was goodbye after
Oh,
that. No more
as
modeling.
quickly as
No more
possible.
faces with
No,
for magazines.
no.
That's wonderful.
Didn't want to do
and
it anyway.
It took you out to the coast.
Took me to the coast. 26 cities we toured.
Now, the first time I saw you on stage was in
Cold Wind and the
Cold
Warm.
Wind in the Warm.
That's when we met.
The little theater.
Yeah.
And you were wonderful. And talk about coming from a major touring company, and then you're in Hollywood now, and you do have a face. So did you go to the studios? How did you get your first?
Well, you know, things were, as you well know, very different then.
I know.
There wasn't, casting directors weren't around. Agents, of course, and somebody in New York connected to an agent here. Agent took you to auditions. I actually went with an agent in to see a producer or a director for an appropriate film. And work was, a lot of work was going on. It didn't matter to me if it was a theater, if it was a film, if it was anything, as long as it was of interest to me.
Was that the first work you got out here, the theater thing, or had you started to do television and film?
It'd be hard put to get it exactly right.
It's important. This is for the archives. Don't make a
Oh,
mistake.
God, I'm in trouble.
Don't make a mistake.
I'm in trouble.
Don't put something in 1961 that should be in 60.
It's probably
Boy,
in
we'll be in trouble.
57, 58. That part I kind of know.
Anyway.
Which was first?
Anyway,
I don't know.
It's an unfair question because it's
That's.
not. Yeah. No,
I know
but-
I had my equity card. I didn't have my SAG card yet.
Oh, there you go. That's how
So-
you figure it out. Okay, from Cold Wind in the Warm, which,
Yes.
by the way, was at a little theater on Melrose.
Players Ring,
And you were,
Santa
I was
Monica.
very impressed. I knew,
Aw.
I knew Marty at the time.
Yeah,
He's
you had done a
married.
film together.
Yes, we did a thing called Gazebo together.
right.
And he said, my wife is in this thing. I said, let's go see what your wife can do. And you were wonderful. I never forgot it.
Oh.
It was a small theater, and you were
Yep.
dancing and prancing all over the stage and making everybody sit up and take
Do you know
notice.
what's great about that, by the way? It was based on a real woman.
S.M.
The
Berman wrote
character,
it.
S.N. Berman wrote it. And she caused some trouble in her nice little hometown. And went off to New York, left it all. Became a little bit of a loose woman, as it was called, and then became a philanthropist. So,
A good
but-
combination.
Yes.
Being a loose woman is a bit of being a philanthropist too, you know.
Girl,
Yeah, philanthropy.
I love it. Anyway, given that, her brother was still alive, and he came to the theater. He was a very old man then. It was a little kind of dodgy playing her in front of him, but he came back and I talked to him. It was really kind of special.
You know, I'm going to move forward because...
Yes, you're getting hungry.
No, because I mentioned at the beginning that you won 3 Emmys, which nobody's ever done, 3 Emmys in a row for Best Dramatic Actress in a series.
Yes.
And that series still exists on television, on cable and whatnot. But would you talk to us about how you got into the most famous of all of those kind of shows? They still make movies about it. Tom
Yes, they
Cruise has been
do.
playing Mission Impossible 1 and 2. Tell us how you connected to Mission Impossible and the experiences.
Well, it actually came out of being in a workshop, an acting workshop. And Bruce Geller created Mission Impossible.
Yeah.
He had just come out here. He was a writer. And in this particular class, it was quite a class. Nicholson was in that class, and oh dear.
Jack Nicholson.
Jack
Yes.
Nicholson. Is there another Nicholson
Yeah.
anywhere?
Mike
you
Nic-
know,
Mike Nic-
Nicholson.
Mike Nicholson.
Oh, that's Nicholson.
I see.
Yeah, Harry Dean, who was then Dean.
Stanton?
Then. Yeah. Wonderful, wonderful class. I know I'm leaving people out that were just
Oh,
extraordinary.
yeah, Lou Antonio? No.
No, he
No.
wasn't in that class. And Bruce, Bob Town was in the class. There were writers in the class because the whole point was to get them up and see what that was about and see how.
And Robert Town is still with
Robert
us.
Town, yeah.
Yes.
And Bruce Geller, who most of the writers, of course, just got up there. They were just beside themselves. They couldn't, but they got a kind of more of an understanding of what
An
was going on.
appreciation of
Yes.
it.
And from that crucible, Bruce wrote The Man of 1,000 Faces for Martin, who was originally in the script called Martin Hand.
Oh, that was the pilot, wasn't it? Mm. Yes.
And then he said, this was later because he didn't tell me at the time, inadvertently had written me in. So when they started having auditions, he knew who he wanted for the character that then became Roland Hand, because it fit the same type things.
Yeah.
It was too close to his name. And so the girl, right?
Cinnamon Carter.
Oh, thank you. That's right. Little spice. He wanted a little spice in the name.
Right.
Sweet spice. He didn't tell me, and I had to go in and audition and audition and audition again, all those auditions. Though Bruce being very taciturn gentleman and very sure about what he wanted.
You know what those auditions were for?
No.
To bring your price down. If
Well,
you
you're
say,
telling me.
get me that girl, you know,
Right.
you
I think
ask
you're
for
right.
more money.
Well, finally, well, he didn't want to promise it to me in case the network,
Yeah.
because they were all going, who is she? I was unknown. So the ultimate last test I had to go through was to see Lucy because she owned the show. So I had to go out and see Lucy in her little bungalow on what was Desilu.
Arnez, for those people who are watching
Lucille
this,
Ball.
watching this in 2064.
So this was funny. My agent, always useful and helpful, said it was your show. The last thing I had done that they wanted to send was the Dick Van Dyke Show.
You played Dory Do.
Right. And I said, don't send that. It's a comedy.
Yes.
To Lucy?
Yeah.
I'm finished.
Yeah.
Don't send a comedy to her, please. First of all, this is a dramatic show.
Yeah.
I mean, I just knew I'd walk in and
Yeah.
maybe be dead.
Yeah.
So they didn't. I said, let me just go in and
And it was
meet
in
her.
black and white, and they were going to do us in color.
I
You would
mean,
never
I
know what
actually
color
did
you-
black and white film.
Yeah.
Somebody asked me that the other day if I had done silence. I said, never mind. We're not having this
Yeah.
conversation. Anyway, I went in, and here's the whole thing that happened that I was in Mission Impossible because I walked in and Lucy went, looks okay to me. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah. So, well, that's nice.
Yes.
I never knew they were tied to Lucy in that way.
Well,
So
because
she
she owned the
could've-
show.
Yeah, she could have vetoed you, and
Easily.
we wouldn't be sitting here today.
No, we wouldn't have had this conversation.
Yeah.
Then the other really glorious thing that happened was as she was written originally as the girl, and Bruce had seen my work in this workshop class thing, and the writers that he hired kind of got on this thing of writing for me with me in mind. Could she play this? Could she do that? Could she play an old blind woman? Could she,
Yeah, I know.
play a German?
What was interesting is that,
And they
as I remember it, you were the pretty one on the show. You know, you lend glamour to the show, and then as the show progressed, we saw your ability as a very serious dramatic actress. I remember one where you played a claustrophobic, and it was
Yes.
really frightening. It was frightening, frighteningly good, and frightened the audience, which you should have. So that was a very important step in your life.
Oh, no question.
To coming here. I mean, this
Here,
is where
this room.
It-
It's
you
all
would-
because.
yes.
Right, I wouldn't be here
You
otherwise.
would neither of us
No
would be here
question.
if you hadn't been.
And if you hadn't done the Van Dyke Show.
Well, yes.
Oh, no, I think you would have been here anyway, darling.
No, my connection to you is why I'm here. We're friends. The first year, you won an award the first year. So not only was Lucy right, but the Academy was right, too. They voted you the best actress in the drama.
That was pretty nice. The morning after, we were in, is it called Palmdale? the desert we often shoot on?
I don't know.
You never been on the desert shooting
Yes,
at
but I
6
don't know
o'clock
where
in the
you
morning? I
shot.
think that's where it was. Well,
Yes.
there's one location that
Yeah.
you just keep going to no matter what. It's probably now a suburban oasis. But anyway, I was face down in the dirt, blistered. They put thousands of blisters on me in the makeup room because that was the
I
story.
didn't see that show.
And it was the morning after the first Emmy. I had my face in the dirt, and I thought, oh, I won that thing for acting. Now act. I had to, you know, organize my brain as to what I was doing with my face down in the dirt.
Now, that was
It was nice.
That was your first Emmy, and then the 2 subsequent ones, were you surprised each time,
I was
every year?
surprised each time.
Because that was a seriously good, what should we call it, adventure show. But the
Yes.
fact that you were able to do these characters,
why.
and people saw real dramatic acting, and that was a surprise to everybody. Not that you didn't deserve it, but they
No, I
said
understand.
that the Academy noticed what you were doing.
It was the best role on
I
television.
mean, not the Academy, the members of the Television Academy who looked at it noticed
It was
what
the
you were
best
doing.
role on television.
I know,
An
it
actress
was.
should be arrested for
And-
having such a good time.
Anthology. I mean,
Yes.
you acted within your acting. You were Cinnamon Carter, but then you were also a blind lady or
Exactly.
a Russian astronaut. I don't know what you did.
Given that, the scripts were very well
Yeah.
done. It was a pleasure to work on that. Whole situation was really well looked after. So I was, you know, lucky to have all of that, the kind of care, the kind of scripts, the kind of recognizing what I could do and it being expanded.
Had you gotten
and the kind of
everything-
makeup.
Had you gotten everything out of that show that you wanted? Because it was after 3 years, and the 4th year was one of those things that was, if the tabloids existed today, and then they exist today, you would have been on the front of tabloids for the next 10 weeks, 10 months.
And I missed that?
You missed that. No, because that 4th year, which I don't know if you were interested in doing or not, but 3 years, was that enough for you?
No, I would have continued. Now, first of all, I was contracted. It was a
You
very,
want,
very...
You want to get your nuts off and explain why you weren't on the
No,
4th year?
I
Okay.
don't.
Okay.
It was a very ugly legal situation arose that had nothing to do with anything
Lawyers
that was
took over.
printed. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, actually, it was an injunction against me for work. I couldn't work for a year. It was very difficult.
It was one of them, it was heinous, and
Yes.
I don't know why you don't talk about it, because you were right and they were wrong.
Yes. Well,
The
one of the
actor was
reasons it was
right.
difficult, because they started planting stuff in the press before I even knew what was going on, and there was a picture painted of me.
Yes, which didn't
That,
fit
then you can't, you're talking to yourself, trying to say, no, it wasn't like that.
No,
you
no,
know?
and all your friends knew it wasn't, because there
Yes.
was not, anyway.
Right.
But what I was going to get at was how actors are not always in control of their destiny.
Not at all.
There are things working backstage, and I don't know what it was, but did they want you to take less money than you
Wasn't
deserved?
it never about money?
Never
We
about-
never had a money conversation. I found out that I was having some difficulty with them when I was sued. A letter came that said I was in breach.
Oh, I know, I remember that.
That was-
They
not
said
a
you
letter,
were
a wire.
2 hours late for a wardrobe fitting or
Well,
something.
it was a forced wardrobe call, which we know about here at this place, but what it really was a royal misunderstanding, an incredible stupidity, really, on the part of the studio people. Lucy no longer being involved, so I don't want there any overlap.
Who's not
in that. She
involved?
had sold Lucy.
Oh, Lucy.
Lucille
oh, no, yeah.
Ball. She had sold the studio by then, so though I mentioned before that she, pardon me, approved of me, she was not involved by then. It was in the sale of the studio to different
No,
parties
you
and a
said you're not
different
willing
thing.
to talk about it. Shouldn't
Clarify it?
Shouldn't this be a place we clarify
I think it
things
could
like?
be clarified.
Yeah, because you'll at least be on record when they blow you in 100 years from now.
Thank
you'll
you
say,
so much, Carl.
Thank goodness I told the truth about that.
Well, the truth was finally written in one article in TV Guide.
That's what we want to hear about.
And we could get that. And it was written because the guy came out to do actually a hatchet job, and then when he checked it all out, found out what really happened. What really happened is just major confusion on the part of the people who had bought
To bring
the
people
studio.
up to snuff so we know what we're listening about, we're talking about why Barbara, after winning 3 Emmys as the best actress in the for dramatic series was not on the 4th and 5th year of the show.
Because number one, the new people didn't care about that at all. What they decided to do was cut the budget, cut the scripts, cut everything. And that was unknown to me. I didn't know what they were up to. And so I got caught because Martin did not have a contract with them.
Martin Landau.
Thank you. He was on a year-to-year deal. They wanted to then tie him up for 7 years. So the focus became about getting him to commit. He wasn't so excited because he's the one who found out the scripts were being cut and things were, and Bruce was going to be off the show.
By the way, that was one of the funniest things that ever happened in show business. Marty Landau was hired to do a guest spot on the first show, and he never had a series deal.
No.
So he was on a week-to-week basis, and after the first couple of shows, he was so good, they said, we got to get that guy. So he was getting more money than probably anybody ever got in a series.
Mostly that he wasn't nailed is what troubled them. So they tried to get him on a 7-year contract, and he said, if Bruce is leaving, and this one's leaving, and this is that, I'm not interested anymore. And there were many, many things happening.
And you never were a team as far as acting.
No.
He was talking about himself.
Therein lies the rub. They misperceived us as one person.
Yes.
We had different agents, different everything, different.
Different sexes.
Right, all of it.
Yeah.
Different shoe size,
Yeah.
for God's sakes, everything. They made an assumption that if he wasn't coming back, I wasn't coming back. And that kind of built up, and then they started putting all this stuff in the paper that I was recalcitrant. Oh. And that I was difficult to work with, which I've never been in my life.
Nobody ever said that.
It became
Because I work with you.
It became the truth.
Yeah.
And that the picture that was painted was that he and I were standing at Paramount with guns in our hands, holding them up for money. We weren't doing that. They're talking to him and thinking I'm not coming back. So it went on, and it escalated, and by the time the first show, we were getting close to start shooting the first show, I was shooting a public service thing with the hairdresser and the makeup person from Mission, so they knew where I was. They called me and said to come to wardrobe. Okay, I said I can't. You know where I am. I'm shooting this thing.
Yes.
What about another hour? Like I would try to work it out. Because we had time yet before we started shooting. The next thing I know, I got a call from a person who had been the,
Affairs.
I can't think of what his position right now was, who was a friend supposedly, who recorded me saying that I couldn't come. Could I come an hour later?
But they knew you
He
were
gave me
doing
a
a
forced.
public service announcement.
They all knew.
Oh.
I had their whole people. I had everybody
How
there
about
with
your
me.
side?
I'll tell you. It was ugly. The actor gets caught in
I
a lot of
remember, I
stuff and
remember.
takes the hit, and then that's what's understood.
And by the way, for the record, I
know.
remember you saying, I have no idea of doing that show next
Of
year.
course
It was
not. I had a
your-
7-year contract. I
yes.
wasn't, and I was having a good time.
And not only having a good time, but getting awarded
Right.
every which way. It was
Tremendously.
absolutely crazy. Anyway,
So the next thing that happened was there was a wire that said I was in breach.
and what they did is made a big savings in everything. And Marty didn't go back, you
No,
didn't
he
go
didn't go
back.
back.
So
This part was interesting. The one thing a producer, sir, you've done that, never wants to state legally is that the actress or actor is irreplaceable. You don't want to write that down anywhere.
Yes, right.
That's what they had to prove.
Yeah.
And they didn't want to prove that. But I couldn't have been in breach if, so they never hired anybody to replace me for the whole year we were in litigation because that would have then said, who needs her? So they hired different actresses that whole first year because they were stuck with having to prove that I was irreplaceable, which was kind of funny. And the rest of it wasn't funny because, of course, a studio as large as Paramount has on retainer a very large law firm at all times. And the actor
And
has...
you don't.
What?
And you don't.
No, but one has to go get one, and they're, you know, it was very difficult. We finally settled, but it was very difficult. Mostly because all these people who were
There was a
Not
settlement.
Bruce,
In other words,
but almost everybody else.
the settlement means they were wrong, right?
Yeah,
Otherwise, they
I
wouldn't
don't
have
know
had
what
to
it means.
They
We
wouldn't
just
have
had to
settle.
stop it.
Yeah.
That's what we had to do.
Anyway, so let's.
And that was what basically happened there, and it was misperceived, and I had to live with it. And then, you know, a year or two later, I went to do something in England, and the lead actor there said, "You know, I was worried about working with you."
How did he say it?
I was worried, terribly worried about working with you. I'd seen you were ever so much trouble in England.
Yeah, I know.
So
That's
it
what
was interesting. How did he know that? He said this after we'd been working a while and found out that wasn't so true. He said, "It's really
Now,
had a lot
when you went to England, you went to do another series.
Yes.
And I visited you there, and that was a big, big hit in the whole world.
About 130 countries.
Space, what was it?
1999.
What? Wow.
And it happened already. It's over with.
Yeah, yeah.
It was way in the future.
Way in the future.
Right.
What year was that?
The 70s, mid-70s. We went to England for about 4 years.
29 years later was a long time.
Yes,
Oh.
yes,
So
exactly.
what was that experience? Working in England as an actress, an American actress working in England for 2 years, was it?
4.
4 years, my God.
2 and 2. What was interesting, I'm not used to quoting Bob Hope, but
Yeah.
he was asked about working in England once, and he said it's like Paramount with tea.
With what?
Tea.
With tea.
I thought that was pretty
Yes.
much it, because you're at the camera. You
I
go to the same thing, you're on a set. There were some differences in terms of the actual shooting arrangement. When you finished at 5:20 every day, so it was home for dinner.
Mm.
That was important to me because my kids I didn't want to miss them.
That was wonderful. You had your kids there. They went to English schools. They got a sophistication they wouldn't have had.
At all. They loved it.
What a wonderful thing to be an actor, isn't it?
Yes, glorious.
The education you get.
Yes.
And the places you see, the people you meet.
Absolutely, absolutely.
What is your best memory of London and your experience
Oh boy,
there?
it'd be hard to say.
Then don't bother.
Well, they asked me when I came back what I missed most here. I said Walter Cronkite, because I did miss him. And sunsets. California sunsets are glorious,
Yeah.
and there aren't any in England because there's no sun.
You're still a poet. You're
know?
still a reader. That's wonderful. And the girl who saw buildings, sunsets are what you remember. That's
Yes.
nice.
Oh, I
That's
saw a lot of things. London rains every day, and after the rain, those buildings just are beautiful.
When we were talking about TV,
Yeah.
you mentioned right before we took a break that there was a memory of the Dick Van Dyke Show that you wanted to share with me and them.
Yes, indeed. I must say, I have to remark that, you know, we've known each other a very long time, and when I first came to this city and it looked totally alien to me, and we sort of grabbed onto each other as family, and it's been exceedingly important and meaningful all these years. Way back when you were doing the Dick Van Dyke Show, I got a part on it, and I was so scared because you were a friend. I didn't want to disappoint you.
And I must say that if you watch the Dick Van Dyke Show on TV Land, and the first 3 years before you got Mission Impossible, when did you get Mission Impossible?
Bad with
Whatever the
dates.
year was.
Yeah,
But you came to as a friend. You
Yes.
and Marty used to come to every taping.
Right.
And we loved having you there, not as a friend, really, but as a laugher, because you have a great laugh. So there were Rosemary's husband, Richard Guy,
Yeah.
Bobby Guy, and you are on every laugh track, not only the Dick Van Dyke Show,
No.
because the guy who was sweetening other shows that had a laugh track, they used to use the laughs captured on the Van Dyke Show. So you're on a lot of other shows that you don't know about.
I ought to write that on my resume,
anyway,
right?
Go.
Wild laughs.
Go.
Well, I was just totally panicked that because you were a friend, I just wouldn't do it right.
Oh,
And I didn't want to disappoint you. I loved getting the job, and then I was just scared the whole time. In the course of which we kind of were very creative and got some fun stuff
by the
going.
way, the show was interesting too because it was Dick Van Dyke having to give up his relationship with his fiancée in Chicago to marry Mary Tyler Moore with Laura Petrie. So that
Yes.
was a very big show.
And he had to, the previous fiancée, had to be appealing enough as a person that he was with her to begin with, but not two, because then he'd be a rotten person telling her goodbye.
It was a very tough road to hoe.
It was. Given that, let alone the, 31 breakaway objects I had to throw at him, which we didn't do.
And hit him with most of them.
That worked.
Yes.
We didn't do it till air.
It was very interesting because you said you were not athletic as a kid, but throwing a ball or throwing an object, you're not good to live with because you can hit people, you can catch them. I mean, I wouldn't guess that you ever did it in reality, but on the show, you hit him with every object.
I cleared him.
Yes,
I actually didn't hit him.
You hit him with the soft ones, the pillows.
We had it worked out, Carl.
Yes,
he wasn't injured.
I know.
You don't have, OSHA didn't have to come in.
I know.
Given all of that, I was so scared. And this reflects to a further moment in life, which is somewhat tragic. But, okay, I was so scared. Airtime, I'd been on the stage, done live things, and I was just totally panicked. And I said to myself just before I went out, what can they do? Shoot me? And I marched out. About a bunch of years later, I was asked to go to some special kind of thing about the Moscow Art Theater at Hillcrest. And I was late because I was shooting, so I came in. It was kind of a formal dinner. And I sat down. They were midway through this film they were showing, and they started to show something, and I started to laugh uncontrollably, which was unacceptable in the situation. What was I laughing at? They could shoot you.
They can
They
shoot.
shot. I mean, it's terrible to even laugh about it, but because of what I had said to myself, what can they do? Shoot me? And gotten out there, I see on this film that a number of the people in the Moscow Art Theater right after the revolution were shot.
Oh.
Exactly.
Not for bad acting, no. Not
They
for-
were shot.
know.
They can shoot
They
you.
can shoot.
And here I had
Yeah.
proceeded in life with some kind of comfort with the idea that they can't shoot me. They
Yeah,
can.
I always say to
So-
myself, they won't invite me back again, and that's not the worst
No,
thing.
I'm an extremist at all times.
Yeah.
So it was like, you know, what are they going to do? Shoot me? They can shoot you. Ended up trying to use that as any kind
Anyway,
of solace.
we didn't know of your fear because you did it beautifully, and it's still running. Now, from the little screen,
Yes.
and at the little screen, you had big success on the little screen. Then comes the big screen, and was it a problem because you were a television star to get past Cinnamon Carter and be cast for major motion pictures?
I don't really know that. I didn't sort of think of it that way, so I don't know. I do know that it's hard for anybody to make a jump past a certain kind of sophisticated woman. And if there's anything else, I have to kind of help them understand that I can play lots of things. And it's not an immediate thing.
You've been doing lately, you've done a couple of goodies, I hear. I haven't seen this one. You've gotten, the last one you've done is American Gun, is that it?
That's correct.
That's with who? Oh, James Coburn.
He and I have known each other a very long time, and I got to play his wife.
Oh,
And we play a really provincial couple, which is kind of interesting because Jimmy and I immediately, again, have a kind of sophisticated edge on us. But we are living in Vermont, the good life, a whole long life, and some tragic thing happens to our daughter, who played by Virginia Madsen. And it's basically, that's the group, and what you see is the effect on the relationship of the people and all of that. It's a very nice film. Should
that's
be out
coming out.
soon, yes.
Panic,
yes.
that you did last year? 2
Yeah.
years ago.
That was with Henry Bermel, wrote it and
And
directed
Donald
it.
Sutherland. And
Yeah,
William H. Macy and Nev Campbell, yes.
what a group. And Tracy Ullman, how about that?
Oh, boy.
What a cast.
Yes.
And lovely script. And again, Donald and I played husband and wife. And it was neat. I've never met Donald, unlike Jimmy, who I knew a long time ago. And I've always loved his work. So it was very nice to, and kind of mysterious. What was he like as a person? How is it going to be to work with him? Having all this kind of admiration on top of it. You know, what do you do with that? Do I still admire my husband that I'm working with here, or is it a different relationship? Anyway, it was wonderful.
You know, there's a list of a lot of features you've done, but there's one that stands out because of our relationship.
There you go.
And it's
Our
not
progeny.
it's not the big one of your life, but
It's our progeny.
yes, we were cameos together in the Spirit of '76. Talk a little about this.
That's correct.
Yes, the
You
Spirit.
were in it.
Yes.
I was in it. Your young son directed it. My
And
older
wrote it,
daughter
and wrote it.
My older daughter produced it. They've only known each other since birth.
And my older son was in it too.
He was in it as well. And I played a sort of aging hippie in it
Yes.
who said all sorts of naughty things.
And I played the oldest man to have lived in the world, which I'm doing. Now I'm now
Getting
doing.
there,
Yeah, I'm
getting
there.
there.
Anyway, that was a wonderful experience because it was our kids knew each other since they were very small, and here
Birth,
they are
it's
producing
called.
and directing
Right.
from birth. You're absolutely right, from birth.
They were born 4 days apart.
4 days apart, and we talked about it the other day because Lucas walked at 7 months. And
I know.
And the two of them were crawling at North Alta and Akim Tamirov's house.
Yes.
I say these words because people are interested in screen actors. And
Right.
Akim was one of the great screen actors.
He was.
And we talked about it the other day because there was a kid crawling, and I said, Lucas got up at 7 months, and he was crawling with Susie Landau, and Susie looked at him, what are you doing in this position? And she pulled his diaper and pulled him down. And we have film of that. And we
Yes.
talked about that yesterday.
Right,
That
exactly.
has nothing to do with show business, but
He didn't stand up. He got up and ran. I mean, he just
I know, nobody
took off.
believes it at 7 months.
7 months.
Now this
I
is on
witnessed
record
it.
too. The truth about Mission Impossible, the truth about Lucas's walking.
There you go.
Anyway, you know, the theater in Los Angeles
Mm-hmm.
is growing and growing and growing. When you first came out here, there was theater, but not a lot. And you were involved with 2 theaters, the Theater West and the Action Studio West. Talk about that, because I think you were one of the founders of those.
Both.
Both.
Not at the Actors Studio
No.
initially in New York, but certainly in bringing it out here. We came out and found that we needed the same kind of thing we had in New York, which was a group to get together and work, and of peers, and keep working. Given that there wasn't such a place that we were aware of, so we started Theater West. That was the first place. And we
Which
had,
still exists, and it's
yes,
very healthy.
Yes. And then in 1968, which for some really weird reason doesn't seem that long ago to me, but is, we started the Actor Studio West. I think Dennis Weaver was there, Martin Landau, I was there, Lou Antonio, we'll leave somebody out. But it was a small group of us, and we met in a storefront on El Centro in Hollywood, and ultimately got the place that we're in now, which is in West Hollywood, used to be Los Angeles. And it's the William S. Hart House, who was a cowboy actor. And I mention that because he deeded this property to the city for theatrical purposes.
Wow.
So we were able to, very special to know that kind of legacy to
William
go
S.
down.
Hart was the first major cowboy in the silent movies.
That's right. And there he gave that house particularly for that purpose. So I've been involved with the studio ever since. I find it an absolutely important kind of thing. Then there are hunks of time I wasn't there, and then I came back recently, fairly, with a kind of question in my own heart as to whether or not the studio's work was kind of passé. Had we passed it? Had we gone on to other stuff?
You're talking about the Actors Studio.
The Actors Studio. And, or did we still, we who are now, whatever the word is, ongoing. How about that, instead of older? You like that one?
Yes.
Okay.
But you know,
If we had anything still to offer
Yes.
was the question in my heart. And then I thought, yeah, we do.
of course.
So
You know,
that's
I
what
was
I've been
thinking,
doing.
I remember way back when Marty you were involved with the Actors Studio, and I went to see a class that Marty was, and there was a Nicholson and a young Nicholson, and doing things at Universal, low-budget pictures.
Yes.
And he became Jack Nicholson.
He was doing Roger Corman pictures.
Roger Corman pictures, yes. That's when I met him
Right.
at your house,
That's
I think.
right.
Anyway, the theater scene, you're involved with play readings around town. Do you
I
do a
have
lot of
been.
those?
I like to kind of work with a writer and give them a chance to see how their work is going, because they need to hear it. I've directed some of them. I certainly jump in as an actress. for that experience, so they can hear it and see what needs the work,
By the way,
the process of it.
If anybody wonders
Yeah.
how good actors really are, when you see them in motion pictures, you know they're certainly got presence, but you
Yes.
never know how good an actor really is until you see them on stage for a full 2 hours. And I had the ability, the chance, the opportunity, not the ability. You had the ability. I had the opportunity of seeing you in stage productions here. And the three of them that I remember with such fondness are Happy Days, Samuel Beckett's Happy Days, Coppott's Wings, and Ionesco's The Chair. That was not too long, about a year ago. Talk about any one of the three of those, or all three, because they were wonderful experiences for theater goers. And how was it for you?
Well, I love them. I love doing something that's really difficult. Still have that kind of
You know, I want to say thing. You are a mildly claustrophobic person, right? You don't like
More than mildly.
Yeah, more than mildly.
Yeah.
And we saw you in a play called Happy Days, where
Yes.
you're buried up to your waist in sand, and the second act up to your neck in sand. And I'm saying, this is the greatest acting in the world, because she's acting like she's not claustrophobic. And I asked you about that. You said, I always had a way out, you know, but...
No, it was really once I committed to doing it. And then I had the rehearsal period to inch up to it. The claustrophobia that I have had most of my life is worse if it's heightened if it's a surprise. I'm really not good at a surprise.
Yes.
If a door closes that I'd expect to close, I can
puts a
freak
bag
out.
over your head.
Right, that's how it all started, I think, with the surgery when I was a kid. But given that, once I committed to it and I could kind of inch up on it and get used to the idea, I had to crawl under the set to get into, under the stage floor to get into the set. So that right away was funny.
The set, by the way, is
Yeah,
just
the
a
whole
mound
set,
of
right,
earth.
was done, right. And then, of course, the last 30 minutes, I'm up to here, and I couldn't move at all. And I was holding on to something underneath there. It was exceedingly, it was there to do battle with. I never did freak out, I was really glad I didn't. I left the latch, there was a latch on it back here. I didn't want the stagehands I didn't want it to be, the minute it was over, I wanted to know I could get out. So I left it, they had designed it so I could open it. I didn't want anybody to not show up, right?
The problems of acting. Nobody knows an actor prepares.
There you
got to
go.
prepare for your release.
It was pretty amazing feeling that.
Those three, Long Day's Journey into Night, I didn't get to see because you did in Seattle.
Yeah.
And that was
Wonderful.
So why I'm mentioning these, and I'm particularly proud of your ability to do these. These are very long, difficult parts that you pull off, and you actually won awards for them too. Happy Days, you won the LA Critics Circle Award, and Wings also, and the Dramalog Award for Wings and the Chairs. So not only does the audience appreciate you, but the critics who've seen you.
I'll tell you, again, we're in an actor's venue here. I've only gotten one bad review in my whole life. I've had a really, I will. Every other thing has been just, I mean, some of them were so good I didn't want to read them while I was still in the production.
Yes.
I can't believe it, I can't. Okay, put it away. Anyway, given that, I was in Seattle doing a Long Day's Journey. The first reviews came out, they were very good. I was living in some unknown person's apartment. They got it for me that was just so unlike me, but never mind. It was sweet and twee and little cups and little things all over the place, too many.
You
anyway.
should be used to that, having been in England.
Yeah, I wanted to move my elbows and didn't. Anyway, given that, about a week in or so, I needed that play. We did it 4 hours, uncut.
Yes.
So, of course, I slept late. Sort of mid-afternoon, I start to, I run it in my head to really go through the whole play and then get to the theater. Well, I walked down. I was on this beautiful lake, and there was a coffee shop, and I knew no one in the town. I walked down the street. I'm going to get a cup of coffee. Great reviews, fabulous play. God, I'm so glad I'm doing this. And I opened the newspaper, and there's a giant picture of me and a terrible review.
Oh, and why are you telling us
Now,
about
I'm telling you because I look at it, and I go, oh, I'm the only person sitting here reading something terrible about themselves.
Yes, in the whole
Everybody
city.
else is just having breakfast.
I know.
And I get this.
Yeah,
And I don't want to say to somebody,
yeah. Look how terrible
look
I
at
am.
this terrible
Yeah.
review about me.
Or most actors would say, this is an outrage. Come to see the show and I'll prove that
I didn't
this
say
person's
anything.
wrong.
I could see how perfectly ludicrous my life was.
Yeah.
That I am sitting
How
there
im-
having coffee, reading this
Okay,
terrible
now
thing.
you're
and that's
laughing,
it.
but how important are reviews to actors?
Well, they're nice if they're good, and they're, I guess, I don't know.
But if you know what
I've
you-
only had good ones, so
Yes.
I'm not exact,
Yes.
except for that one in Seattle.
Yeah.
With a big
I'm glad
picture.
that you-
I'd open it up
I'm
and
glad
there's
that you
my
can share
face
that.
and
If
all
you-
these terrible
If you,
words.
if you had told us about that before we started this interview, we might not have gone through with the interview. Because who wants,
I thought it was
who wants to
hysterical.
interview somebody
I
who's
thought about
got...
everybody else's life.
No,
And
no.
they weren't reading bad things about themselves. They were drinking coffee.
You know, this, I don't know, we'll jump around, but this one is laying there to be talked about because we mentioned before that you started something, and I saw it happen. You know, very rarely do you see the genesis of anything as clearly as your book pal thing. And would you talk about that and explain it, because it should be in the archives. This should be in the archives. To me, I'm most proud of you for having done this, because it's a lasting thing, and not only that, but it's making good citizens.
Yeah.
It's making non-toxic citizens, and you're responsible for it. And tell us how it happened. It's
It
called
happened,
the Book
oddly enough, Book Pals.
Book Pal, yes.
We are now in 20 cities across
20
the country.
cities.
Yes, started here in
When
Los
I met
Angeles.
it was only in your head, but go ahead how it started.
It started because of you.
Not because of me, because we're playing a game.
You and Estelle gave me this game called Personal Preference.
Personal preference,
right.
yeah, wasn't
We played it, and then
Yes.
I had it at home, and Juliet and a friend of hers came over, my younger daughter, and we started to play this. And it's an odd game in that you pass out picture cards, and each person has to list in order of their personal preference what they like most. Lemon meringue pie, a yacht, diamond ring,
Yes.
reading to kids. So the other person has to call it. What order did you put it in, right? To show how well they know you.
How well I know you.
Right.
I would have to say you don't like tight places, or you do
Right.
like you loose
Right.
clothes. Yes.
You got it.
Right.
So Juliet picked on her thing in relation to me reading to kids. And I said,
As the number one
number
preference.
one.
Yes.
I didn't have it number one in order.
You had it at number 4.
Somewhere
Yeah.
like that. I don't remember the other items. So she then said, well, you've always said you love reading to kids. And I said, well, Juliet, I don't. You guys grew up in 2 minutes. So she said, it's not what you do, it's what you love to do. She wanted her points.
Yes. Yes. Right. You're
We
right.
looked up the
Yeah,
rules,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Okay. She got her points. And the next day I started walking around. I said, wait a minute, why aren't I doing that? She's exactly right.
You were always reading to your own kids, and now why
And
aren't
the
you reading to kids? Because the
kids.
kids are grown up
So I
and can
started
read.
calling up around and seeing, I didn't want to go to libraries. I thought anybody in a library, any child in a library already had a leg up. Somebody got them to the library. What about a kid who's never been to a library? What about kids in general? So I called around and I found a sort of latchkey daycare camp in Venice and volunteered. I went down there, sat on the grass with the kids, and the people who ran it were happy that I was there. The kids were all ages, so it was kind of interesting picking material. And I did that summer.
Remember what the first book you read to anybody?
It was
These
something
kids?
from my kids' loved books, which were up in the attic.
Uh-huh.
It was either Where the Wild Things Are, a book called Swimmy. I took the kids' books that they had saved from the attic. And, okay, it was the end of the summer. The kids made me little chains out of flowers. They were
How many times
pictures.
did you read to them?
Oh, a couple times a week
Oh,
for
and for how long a period?
an hour. You can't read to kids
No, I
longer
mean,
than
how
that.
many
Oh, the
weeks?
summer.
The
It
whole
was the
summer. In other words, you were there 2 or 3
Yeah.
times a week
I'd
the
go
whole
down,
summer,
yeah.
just you and a bunch of
Me
kids.
and a bunch of kids and some counselors
And the
who were
counselors-
glad to sit down for a minute.
And the counselor was so happy to have you,
Yes.
yes.
So then I walked away and I thought, wow, that was really neat, and that's really sweet, and the kids seem to like it, and leave it alone. And I thought, no, I don't know how to leave anything alone. Wait a minute. How many actors in this city? How many of my colleagues, at the time I think it was 80,000 or something. We all have time because we're underemployed. Every actor can read. Still one of the large populations left that can read. Have to get a role.
And love to read. Because
Love
they're
to-
acting.
Yes,
Yeah.
but have to.
Yeah.
It's not, lawyers read.
Yeah.
As large populations, it's hardly around anymore of a group. So I went to, actually, Richard Mazer.
Who was the president of the guild
It
at
was
the
prior
time?
to him to being president, but he was on the board. And I asked him in passing if this is something we can do, would like to form up. And he immediately responded to it. He took it to the board, and they were very excited. Took it to the foundation. We have a foundation here at Screen Actors Guild. And they were just perfectly, at that point, seeming to be looking for some kind of outreach project. Then I went down and talked to Tom Bradley, whom I'd known for years. And
Helped him get elected.
yes. So, and never asked him for anything, which he really liked, because I didn't need anything from him. I wasn't building buildings or getting permits, right? So we remained friends. And he walked me right down the hall to a after-school program that's been around a long time. Now, that he started, under his aegis. And that was so we were up in less than, like about 30 days to get any kind of program done in a city, anything of any kind.
So you got to
that quickly.
now. So now you had to get the actors to do it. How did you approach?
Just had a meeting. Said, "Hey, who wants to do this?"
When was the meeting? Right here at this.
At the office on Hollywood Boulevard.
With actors.
Actors.
And you called them in on what pretext?
They were there at a meeting and they volunteered.
I see.
And Bradley came down, talked to them. We had it all up in, I don't know, less than a month or two. And that was the beginning. And it just snowballed after that.
And how many schools did you service that first few months?
I'm not great at that, but we began right away because we had so much, the need for it was so enormous.
Usually in poor neighborhoods.
Disadvantaged neighborhoods, but they all are.
Yeah.
I got a desperate call from the Beverly Hills School. Would you please come and read to the kids?
Are they doing that?
Yeah.
Now wait a second. That's a farce. Now what I'm really impressed with is that you started. How many years ago is that?
92, I think.
That's what? That's almost 10 years ago. Going to be 10 years
good.
ago.
I'll do this.
And you started. You picked on the toughest area to kids who are really disenfranchised in the Watts area.
Yes.
The area where the riots broke out, and you picked a school there, or what is it, a school?
I picked it because, yes, it's a grade school, and I go to kindergarten, first graders. You can read all the way up to 6th grade. I have this real thing about
Little
kindergarten,
ones.
first grade. I
Yeah,
want them to
getting them to want to read,
get
right.
it right away, and to share that love of reading, and to have conversation with them about the thing we've just read, and talk to them about the picture in the book. If you drew it, how would you do it?
Yeah.
Oh, I'd make the monster this, or I like him the way he is, or I didn't like that story. All of that.
So you're reading to the same age kids for 10 years now?
Yes.
Huh?
Yes.
And at the same school in
Actually
Watts?
9, 'cause it was the
takes you an
second
hour
school,
to
yes.
get down there, an hour to
Yes.
get back. That's dedication. If we
It's
don't give,
irresistible. These kids are so eager. They're so excited. Barbara's here. They're all grabbing my legs. I mean, I've got hundreds of kids hanging on to my legs. There are many other things about it. For instance, a kid was brought over, and I tell this because it just tells it. It kind of plopped into the group. This was actually at the first school I went to. And he said, "I want to hear no story." And he was a very hostile kid. And then he stayed put. He did listen. And after that, he kind of walked over to me like he didn't want anybody to see that he was talking to me, kind of backwards, And then he said to me, "You got any stories about whales?"
Oh. Did you bring one right away?
I said, "Boy, is there a story about a whale." I'll bring a Moby Dick, but not yet.
Yeah.
So, I knew I got him. I knew he got something, that he wanted something. So that's what's always there, inherent in the experience.
Talk to us a little about your experiences reading to the children.
Well, there's just so many ramifications beyond just the exchange in the classroom, them asking questions. Even the fact that I don't know, everybody liked this story? Because I was the kid in the class that I wondered why everybody liked something and I didn't. And it makes you feel very uncomfortable as a kid. So I even allow that idea that you don't have to like
Do they ever
everything.
request you bring back the same story?
Yes.
Kids love to hear the same
Oh,
story.
yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes. And particularly this year, it's a book called I Love You Just the Way You Are. So that's the need, obviously.
How old are they?
Kindergarten, first graders.
So the 5, 6 years old.
Yeah, and just hungry, just so excited about it all. And there are a lot of different things that happen in the room. I think I was talking about the fact that I was sometimes, well, not often, the kid who didn't get why everybody else was laughing or why people liked something and I didn't like it, and you feel very odd unless somebody lets you know it's okay. So I'll ask them, did you like this book? And somebody will say no, and I'll say why, and we'll talk about it. So they get in the habit of just even considering their own viewpoint of something, even though they're very young. I'll also ask them sometimes, they're excited because they can spell their names, you know. How does it start? What's it start with? A J. Okay. So see where the J's are over there? Go over and pick a book out and we'll read it, even though I come with books. And maybe someday if you write a book, that's where it'll be. Nobody ever told me maybe I could write a book. So things like that. Then the other thing that I feel really excited about is we go to the library, the public library in the area, and they get their first library card. So that kind of loops back to my own life.
That's a ritual. At the
Yes,
end of
at
every...
the end of June, just beginning, middle of June when the semester's over. And they've gone through that first year, and they are mostly writing and reading. Not enough, certainly, but that's what's happening. And we get on a bus, because we have to. The Compton Avenue in Watts has a beautiful library. It's a new building with a small but lovely children's
And are you
section.
alone with these? Or is there a
No, there's
teacher?
always somebody from the school.
A teacher from the
Yeah.
school.
So I say, we're going to the public library. Who's the public? And they usually point to the teacher and me. And I say, no, we're all the public. And they usually say, we the public? Because it's a concept they don't have. And I say, okay, so what does that mean? Let's think about it. We're going to go in a building, and it's a public library. So just before we walk in, just take a minute, look up this big building, and you own it. It's your building. It's part of you. You own it, you know. A kid, a big building, mine, that's kind of exciting. And it also has all kinds of social ramifications. You take the books out, you have to return them. Somebody else can read them. Why do we have so many books in one place? That kind of, so we talk a little bit about it, and they get a sense of their obligation to the community, in essence, because they have to bring the books back. So I just love that.
Now,
That's all happy for
and
me.
they get their first card that
Yes.
day, do they take out a book that first day?
They have already, the parents have filled out all the information. The
Yes.
school does that, and they get a chance to take a book out, and they have a
So
time
you
to
see
bring
them
it
take
back.
their first book out?
Yes, yes.
Oh, my God.
Very exciting.
Got to be thrilling for you.
I did.
Now, how many kids in that class?
Oh, too many, maybe 30.
30, so every
five.
year for 10 years,
Yeah.
30 kids have come and gotten. No, I'm saying
That's true.
incrementally, by the end of the decade, hundreds and hundreds of kids are reading because of this whole program.
I hope so.
Yes,
I
well,
hope
it
they're
has to
having
be.
that kind of excitement that I feel, that one learns one's whole life and who you are through
Okay, now
reading.
tell us,
So-
you went to the Screen Actors Guild Foundation,
Yes.
you started doing it
Yes,
yourself first,
right.
and now you had to get other actors in other
They all
cities.
volunteered. All over this country, there are SAG-AFTRA and equity offices. So it's all through the union so that we have a control on it and a clarity about it. We have a wonderful woman who goes across the country and sets each office up so it's each one is properly set up. And there's age-appropriate material so we know what grades you're reading to and what would be good to read. A
Who
lot of
chooses the books? You're probably big on
we have input from the Children's Library
I
in
see.
downtown Los Angeles. This wonderful children's literature nowadays.
So now,
Extraordinary.
what would you guess, how many cities are now operating?
20.
And all with SAG and AFTRA members? Huh?
Yes.
All,
And most of the readers are so turned on by it. First of all, they get an audience, which actors like.
you know how symbiotic that is. actors are getting as much out of it as kids, because actors who have nothing to do that day are performing. They don't
You
even
got
have to
it.
put makeup on,
Right.
but they're performing.
You got it.
Yeah, I mean,
And it feels good. It's all voluntary. Some of them have actually gone back to teaching or considered teaching for the first time and become teachers. A couple of them have written children's books out of the experience.
really.
Yeah, there's a lot of dynamics. And there are further dynamics. There are a couple of new programs that were instituted, one of which is Storyline, which you have read a story
Yes,
for us.
right.
And from what I understand, just, minutes ago, we received a grant from Verizon of $100,000 to continue to make Storyline available on a larger canvas. And that means kids can dial a number and hear a story by such as you.
Even better actors than me.
No.
No.
And there's another part of it, you may not know about it, which is so special. And I have been lucky enough to be a party to the culmination of this project. This is something called We the Children. Why it has that name, I don't know. But what it is through the either 5th or 6th grades, over a semester, with a teacher and a Book Pals volunteer, the kids write their own history and illustrate it. So they actually write a book. And it takes a certain kind of concentration to do this kind of a project, which isn't much in the schools. They need a topic sentence. They need a, paragraph, all the rest of it. Pictures. We have somebody helping them with the artwork. We then publish them. Each child gets their book at a kind of little ceremony. Their parents come, and we publish this book in hardcover. They go away with their story, their book that they wrote. We give a second copy of all of them to their school library, again, as a legacy. The focus that has happened with those kids, finding, first of all, they have to interview the parents, find out history, etc. Sometimes it's very painful. Parents don't want to talk about it. After a while, they do. So there's some kind of extra thing that happens, not just telling the story. And they're beautiful books. I mean, they're just rife with all kinds of extraordinary experiences. I go to these kind of things to kind of just, applaud them. And I pick out a book, and I'll read one of them to the whole place. And one of the stories, a kid told how much he loved her sister. And her sister, of course, was there. So afterwards we were talking, and I asked her sister, did you know she loved you that much? She said, no.
Oh,
I said, well, look what we got here.
yeah.
An expression that a whole lifetime could have gone by and she wouldn't have known it. I mean, they're just so rich, it's hard to even...
Yeah. What's wonderful about it is the amount of people being touched by it. Throughout the country now, how many kids you think are being read to this way?
Not a lot.
Huh?
Oh, now?
Yeah.
From us?
Yes.
Oh, I thought you meant just generally in the population.
No.
About 80,000 kids
That's
a week,
an awful
I think
lot of
so.
kids.
Yes.
80,000
And
kids and you say 20 to a class, that's a lot of actors working.
Yeah.
I mean,
How about that?
Yeah, it's just one of the best projects ever done by any organization, and I'm so proud that the Screen Actors Guild has
As am I.
Yes.
As am I. It was just logic. It just fit. So neat. It's neat.
Yeah.
It's what we can do. It takes an hour.
Anyway, someday they're going to build a little building with books in it. It's going to be called the Barbara Bain Memorial Library.
Oh,
or
dear.
something.
Leave that last word out. Will you?
Yeah.
No, the second
No,
to last word.
and I'm talking about 2064.
Are you
Yeah,
doing?
that's right.
Okay.
Oh, now.
Don't need that. I feel the legacy.
You-
Do you know, I feel it when I go across the city to the school I go to. I feel the whole bunch of readers with me. I feel they're with me.
Yeah.
It's a nice feeling.
But the fact that you have kept this continuity, I'm impressed by that. Whoever keeps their promise to kids and coming down every week for 10 years to the same school to see, and how many, how many 20 group 5 and 6-year-olds who are going to remember the blonde lady who came from uptown.
Wherever she came from, some
and,
mysterious place.
I know.
Right.
The blonde lady, it's an extraordinary thing. That's a movie. That's a movie.
Okay, Carl.
Yeah, it's a movie because we're going to have to, the movie's going to be about one of the first kids you influenced, and he is now E.K. Rowling's. You know,
We
he's
like
now writing
that.
books like
That would be
Harry
swell.
Potter or something.
That would be so
Yeah,
swell.
I know.
I see some of the kids, they're grown up now, you know.
Really?
Or something. Well, sure.
Do they remember?
Of course.
Oh, that's wonderful.
You know, they come and talk
They're
to
in the
me.
same neighborhood. They have kids and
Yes.
sisters and brothers going to.
And well, that's another thing I tell the little kids, because even the little kids have younger siblings. There are a lot of siblings in these families.
Yeah.
So I say, okay, you have a baby, well, you're the big shot now. You know how to read, so you
Yeah.
can read stories. Because the parents are both there are a lot of double parent families,
right,
more
right.
so than I thought, but they're both working.
Mm-hmm.
So nobody's reading to the kids. They're busy. So I say, okay, now you can be the big shot. You can read to your baby brother.
Oh,
baby
you know,
sister.
this has nothing to do with anything, but
Good.
no, but I have to tell you. You can record it if you want. I'm reading a script the other day. Somebody sent me to be in something.
Yes.
And it's about two families discussing, talking about reading, discussing. My 6-month-old has already said Dada, and your 6-month-old hasn't.
Right.
Her name was Grace. Grace is, and he said, and the husband says, we ought to read to our kids. He's why? Because Grace says so? He's no, because Rob Reiner says so. Now here you and Rob Reiner are on the same page as
That's
far as
right.
reading to the kids,
That's
reading to
right.
the kids.
That's
You're
right.
reading, you put your mouth where your mouth is.
And Rob, so is Rob.
Yeah. Anyway, now here's you know, there's a question that I have written here, and I'm
Yeah?
saying, what is she looking forward to in the future? And you are the future. You couldn't have anything more to look forward to than that. I mean, as an actress, you always look forward to that wonderful part that you might want to play.
I've never thought like that.
Huh?
I've never thought that. I
No.
was never able to define that. I was always good at, oh, flowers showed up. What do I do with those?
Yes.
Rather than conjuring
Yeah,
flowers to
yeah.
begin with. I was very
Yeah.
good at seeing what was there at the
Yeah.
moment, but I was never good at kind of making it up ahead
But
of
there
time.
isn't one part that you say, "Oh, I have to play that," because
No.
you've already the things we've done on stage are the four of the most difficult roles
Yes.
ever for a human female. But
Yes.
so that's good. Well, you're using your energy in promoting literature.
Right.
That's
Right.
yes.
Right.
We just spent a wonderful time with Barbara Bain, and I hope you take away from this the fact that if you're not reading to your kids or somebody else's kids, you're not as good a citizen as you can be.
Thank you
Anyway.
for saying that.